All right, good evening. Today is Monday, September 16th, 2019. Welcome to the Sweet Talk. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and a gold product expert in the Google for Education Help Forums. Plus, I am a technology teacher. And today, I am so happy to have on the show Mr. Steve Isaacs. Another fellow teacher from New Jersey. So New Jersey, yay, we're in the house tonight. So welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Kim. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming on. I seen you at ISTE back in June, and it just seems like, that was like so last year,
Yep.
But why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're going to go over tonight?
Sure. So I teach game design and development. I've been teaching for 26 years. I started my career in special education, but for the past 20 years, I've been teaching technology, and that evolved to creating a course in game design and development at William Annan Middle School initially, and that's been going for over 10 years. And this year, I also brought my course to Ridge High School. So now, for the first time in my whole career, I'm also teaching at the high school, which is something I really wanted to do, as we have this great program at the middle school, and I always wanted to create an opportunity for kids at the high school to also get into game design and development, especially, both kids that I've had in the middle school to continue, but also to create the opportunity for kids that have not. Also very involved in the use of VR and AR in technology in schools, and primarily with regard to kids as content creators. And over the past few years, I've gotten quite involved in esports and the esports and education kind of movement, where we're really trying to build community around the opportunities for kids in K to 12 to participate in esports as sort of a pipeline for what would come next, which could be college or, even pro for some.
Wow, you just threw a whole bunch of things out there. I don't know where to start. So I know you're big into VR and AR. I actually went to one of your sessions at by Evolving Educators.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I forgot the name of the conference it was.
Yeah, what was
but with Brad Curry.
Yeah.
At Rider University. I don't
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank on the name of their conference.
I don't remember the name of the conference.
Is it not just Evolving Educators?
No, it's
okay.
Something else. But anyway.
Oh, wait, something, schools for tomorrow, something like that.
I don't know.
Tomorrow's schools today, I think it might have been called.
Tomorrow's classrooms today.
There you go, something like that.
Is that it? I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
But I remember, learning from you there. You were talking about, AR, VR, and MX, right?
MR, XR is kind of the catch-all phrase for augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality.
Okay.
Yeah, so it used to be people were talking a lot about VR, and then as we started talking about these other, things that you can do that were, sort of augmenting reality in different ways and whatnot, it became important to kind of have this catch-all. So instead of saying AR, VR, MR, we kind of call it XR.
Okay, so XR. All right, so
extended, which kind of stands for extended reality.
Extended reality. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know, because then I could start talking about XR in my class. And
right.
Kids be like, what?
Yeah.
But I learned. That was the first time I met you there, and then we've been, a little bit back and forth on Twitter, but I know that you're really big on the gaming, and I wanted you to talk about that as
sure.
well, because I know you were recognized recently for some type of, I don't know if it was an award or a certificate or recognition, but why don't you talk about that a little bit, and then you can go into how you started getting into this game design and what you used to do this.
So, in terms of acknowledgments, a couple of years ago, in 2016, I was the ISTE Outstanding Teacher, and the same year I was recognized as the PBS, look at me, I have a PBS shirt on, in fact, the PBS Digital Innovator Lead for New Jersey, as well as, kind of some other things around that. But and luckily, it was great to be acknowledged for that, because the main thing that I was able to kind of, in my nomination was about the work I was doing in primarily game design. So, um, you know, a number of years ago, well, actually, gosh, to take the story back a bit, about 20 years ago, my wife and I opened a computer training and gaming center. The gaming part kind of came actually after the fact. It was really going to be a center for computer camps and after school programs and things like that. And then in order to, our mission was kind of to provide creative or teach creative uses of technology. And out of that came things like teaching kids to design their own websites and a lot of graphic arts type things. And then we got into a lot of game-based learning before there was really a term called game-based learning. So we would run camps that married sort of the use of games. Like one good example is we would use the game Age of Empires, which was a real-time strategy game where you choose a civilization and you research technologies and build up your civilization and ultimately fight against the other civilizations. But to also bring an educational component in, we had kids do some legitimate research about these civilizations and then sort of bring their research into their gameplay, and vice versa, because they were learning some of this right in the game and then also kind of coming with some of their knowledge that they came up with. Part of the reason for this was at the time it seemed like, kids are going to love programs that we offer that involve games. Parents are going to love an educational tie-in, and it sort of just made sense. And then that emerged to other things, like we started, introducing programs for kids in game design and development. And then that grew. And you had asked about what kind of tools we used. Way back then, and it's amazing because this is, like I said, this goes back almost 20 years. We were using a program called Game Maker, and Game Maker still exists. It's gone through a number of upgrades, like big time, like it's unrecognizable from the version we were using 20 years ago. But that was an incredible tool because it both allowed kids to create their own graphics and animation for the games and then program all of the different elements, but it did it in a nice, easy to use environment with a little bit of drag and drop of the commands, but it still really followed what kind of programming syntax would look like, just in a little bit of an easier way for kids to understand. So that was kind of where that started. Then I got a job at William Adams Middle School, while we still owned our business, as a technology teacher. And I was hired primarily because we were demonstrating that we were doing these creative things. And our principal at the time thought, hey, let's bring in some of these opportunities. So there I started teaching more traditional, like programming classes and web design classes and communication technology. But after school, I started a game design club. And part of it, I don't know if I realized that I was really looking ahead at the time, but it was one of those things where, as it proved to be really effective and that kids were really gaining skills and enjoying and learning things and pushing themselves because of their own motivation, I finally got to a point where I said, hey, can we offer a full semester game design and development class for our 8th graders? And my principal and supervisor were in full support, and we moved forward with that. So that was just that was transformational for me in my career, because it was like really creating the job that I wanted. Like, this is what if I could do anything, this would be it.
That's really cool, because you went back 20 years and you're doing, like, you were doing innovative tasks back then,
right,
that are still being used today. So I think that's really cool. Like, you were kind of like ahead of your time,
right?
And now, like, everybody else caught up. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
Now we're in this world where gaming is so big, and
right,
and it makes a big difference with kids and learning and engagement. So now that you're in this world, what do you do to bring it to the next level? Like, what do you do at this point to be innovative so that you're leading the
right?
pack?
Well, that's a really great question. So, it's constantly about kind of reinventing, yourself and also keeping up with certain things. And for me, the excitement comes when it, in terms of finding, the what's new and what's exciting to kids and what's meaningful to kids and what's relevant. So one of the things that I started working with last year, I had a group of students, and this is where kind of when I was talking about creating, authentic opportunities for kids, I had a group of students that specifically when it was time to create their final project, which is a game, and I generally let kids use whatever tool they want. My feeling is I'd rather empower the kids to use something they want and then have them own a lot of the learning, because, the way we learn these days is YouTube and wikis and all these resources that, I'm not the expert in all of these tools. I can facilitate the process. So I had a group of students in my fourth period class last year specifically ask if they could use Fortnite creative mode for their project. And I had been, following what was happening with Fortnite creative, and it's an amazing tool for creating, content and games and game worlds and virtual environments and things. So
and this was all accessible online. You didn't have to download anything. Okay.
Well, no. You do download Fortnite. You would download, but it is free.
Okay.
But one of the cool things about the accessibility is Fortnite is available on computer, on Xbox, on PlayStation, on the phone, on the Nintendo Switch, and with your account, you can access your worlds or your creations in any of those environments. So I have kids that might work in school and then go home and work either on their computer at home without it being a big deal because the world is housed online. So they just jump back in and they're back to working if they want on their project. They could do it on their phone. They could do it on whatever. So that part's really neat. The question initially was like, Fortnite at its core is a shooter game, but Fortnite creative mode in no way has to be. In fact, most of the content people are creating in Fortnite creative is really creative, games and things that include obstacle courses and all these really neat things. And there's a really great trigger system in it that allows you to automate things and all that. So, my feeling with my kids was, I'm all for it, but because of it had the name Fortnite associated, I figured let's at least, do our due diligence and get proper permission and approval and whatnot. So I had this group of kids write a letter to our principal and, kind of state their case about why they felt it was valuable in education. They were very forthcoming in sharing with our principal that they understood that there was the ability to use weapons, but they were going to make sure their content was appropriate for school. And they also brought up an interesting point that in these other game engines, there's no reason why you couldn't bring in a weapon as something in your game and, that kind of thing. And sometimes they do, but we were just going to ensure that we kept it appropriate for school. And they also said that they would go ahead and provide a permission slip that they would all get signed in order to be able to use Fortnite. So they were getting their parent permission, they were getting school permission, and they owned that. And that, took a little bit of time, and they did that. And it became a great experience for them, and they really did great work. I think the ownership that they took by pitching it in the first place to the administration made them feel like they kind of, once it was accepted, they had a voice, and also now they had to be true to their word, So that was like remarkable. So that is now a tool that I'm really excited about. And when you talk about what do you do to keep going forward, Fortnite Creative, one of the neat things is that Fortnite is made with Unreal Engine, which is a professional industry standard game design tool that, as you start, when you buy games, quite often you'll load it up and it'll say made with Unreal Engine. So my thought there was, all right, so this is a great stepping stone too, especially now that I'm teaching high school, is that let kids get kind of in that environment with Fortnite Creative, which is fairly easy to use, and let them evolve to, learning Unreal Engine and really gaining, industry, standard skills and work readiness, and, go above and beyond. And then one step further I'll bring up, and then I'll be quiet for a moment, is that Unreal Engine and like Unity and some of these other products allow you to create content for virtual reality. So there again, we're, playing around, having kids involved with real cutting edge technology and being on the forefront of learning and developing with these tools that are still being kind of explored and just starting to be really widely implemented in industry.
All right. So 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first, what kind of equipment do you need to do this in a Fortnite Creative and in the other
Unreal Engine?
Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
And then what are they coding? Like, or is the interface like a GUI interface?
Yeah. So Fortnite Creative is, think of it almost like using Minecraft, where a lot of it is things, and it actually, even in some ways, like in Minecraft, you would build everything essentially from the ground up. And I use Minecraft extensively and absolutely love that as well for game design. So in Minecraft, you're building, with blocks and such. In Fortnite Creative, there's a lot of these pre-created assets that you could bring right in. So if I want to bring in a big house, I can grab that, plop it in the world, and then that becomes part of my game or my game world. But then in terms of the coding part, so Minecraft has something called like command blocks and commands and redstone, which allow you to automate things. So you're essentially getting into computational thinking and computer science thinking, but in that environment. Similarly, Fortnite Creative has different devices that allow you. One's like a radio signal type system where think of it like if I walk over here on this item, I might have the radio signal triggering something that, because I walked on that, it's going to affect something else. So I am, in essence, doing this branching of like coding in a sense, but in a way that, again, makes a lot of sense to kids. Like, okay, if I do this, this is going to be the effect. And then if I do this, maybe I want it to affect 2 or 3 different things, or, things like that. So they are now in Unreal Engine. So you also asked what kind of equipment you need. We have pretty good computers in my lab because I teach game design, and things like the graphic card are a definite factor. However, the fact that Fortnite can also run on your phone and on like the Nintendo Switch and some other devices kind of makes you realize that they did a pretty good job of being efficient with, even though the graphics are good, it doesn't require as high end of a computer as some other games might that are really high in terms of graphics. But don't get me wrong, it is a visually stunning game, and that is a factor. So, you would want to check out your hardware first and make sure it was compatible. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd have a dedicated video card, a good amount of RAM, and a fast processor. Now, Unreal Engine will have more demands like that, because as you build in it and do things, it's going to tax and utilize more resources from the computer. And again, with your question about coding, so Unreal Engine, the ability to code extensively is there. However, there's a reasonable amount of things kids can do before they even need to necessarily get into coding. So as they build worlds in that, again, with some predefined assets, some assets that might already be coded, it allows you to have this kind of easier on-ramp where you can get started and do some pretty cool stuff before you necessarily have to worry about coding. However, my goal, like for my high school class, would be to get to a point where we have different levels of game design and even maybe a programming for games course where my kids might work on more of the design side and the computer science kids might actually collaborate with them and do that real hardcore coding. But a lot of these things
work in progress.
That is, yeah, because this is the first year, so we have only one level so far of the game design course at the high school, but I have big plans.
So when you talk about the creative Fortnite Creative, and then what is it called? The
Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine. They're two separate things.
Essentially, but they're both the same company, and basically with the Epic launcher, which is what you would use to install and run both of these, both of them are freely available through that. So it's somewhat seamless to say, okay, once we have the Epic launcher running and we have Fortnite installed and Unreal installed, we can use either one, but they are definitely different products in the way you would use them. But interestingly, the company Epic is very invested in education as well. So that's really exciting to see that they understand the value and that their tools can be really quite influential in education and also in creating the next wave of real game developers. So I mean,
No, so I mean, you can tell I'm not a gamer.
That's all right.
So
that's why I'm here.
That's right. That's why you're on here. So okay, so before you leave, I want you to talk about e-games.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want you to talk about e-games briefly, but I want you to tell me, all right? So I'm an educator as well as you are. I'm very tech savvy, just like you are, but I am not a gamer. So
right.
How would you convince a teacher like me to even step into this zone?
Right.
Like, I'm not afraid of computer science education. I'm not afraid to code.
Right.
But how can I use this and justify it in my technology lab? So try to convince me, because I really want to hear your pitch.
You know what I'll do is I'll take a little step back to when I started using Minecraft. Because when I brought Minecraft into the classroom, I was using other like real game design tools, not commercial games to make games within, but rather like Game Maker and other things like that. Minecraft was so important to the kids, and all they talked about at the time was Minecraft. So my feeling, and this is part of my mission kind of, is if this game is so important to these kids, it was important for me to find a way to bring it into the classroom, because it's meaningful to them and that's where they are. So what I did was I kind of took a leap of faith. I started talking to some other educators that I knew were using Minecraft. Now, yes, I do understand games and things, but I had no experience with Minecraft. There was a guy, Joel Levin, who created a mod for Minecraft way back when called Minecraft EDU. And there was a huge community around that. And these were wonderful people that I started talking to and saying, how can I use this? And, other people too, Marianne Malmstrom, who's her gamer tag is No Clue, and she's just an incredible educator. I got to talking with these people, just like you're asking me right now, and it was like, so my first thought was I was going to do it this way, whatever my way was. And they kind of, re-guided me a little bit to thinking, well, let's empower the kids more and let's put more of it in their hands. So rather than me saying, I think you should make this kind of game with Minecraft, it became like, all right, here's a tool. You kids are the experts with it. Create a game using this as a tool, because I knew that was at least possible. And I left it very wide open. However, I did have kids very excited to and willing to show me how to use it. And that's the story. If you talk to if you talk to 100 educators using Minecraft, 95 of them will say that they invited kids into lunch to kind of teach them how to play, I knew I wanted to have a server, but I knew nothing about that at the time. I had an 8th grader who had his own server and was willing to help me out. So he became like the server moderator. Totally. And it was amazing because I would say to him, I have this idea. I'd like to be able to do this. But honestly, no idea. I wasn't faking it. I wasn't trying to challenge him. I was truly engaging him. And he'd go home and he'd come back the next day and say, oh yeah, I figured it out. This is how we can do that. One of the things was I wanted to have each kid be able to have their own world in Minecraft, but have a way to connect them. So I wasn't sure, if that was even possible, and he figured that out. So same thing with.
How do you align that with? How do you align it with social studies? So I get that whole.
Right.
I get that because I've witnessed that as well,
Yeah.
where the kids are really engaged and they want to go over and above. But how do you like me as a technology teacher? I integrate in all subject areas.
Right.
How do I line that up with the Bill of Rights?
So social studies is a great example. So let's take take the typical. Let's say the kids are supposed to make a brochure about let's talk science for a minute, about a national park or something, right? That's one option for a project. What if we give them the option and say, how about this? How about if you recreate this national park in Minecraft and create a learning experience for other people to walk through your park and actually learn about it, which is so possible in Minecraft and also in Fortnite Creative, where you're now putting them in the position where, my wife, it's funny because she used to drive her nuts. Like, she would walk down the hall and there'd be, a whole wall of brochures because every kid did the same project, So, giving kids choice, that's the lowest hanging fruit. Because then you're saying to the kids, here's my criteria, here's my rubric.
Right.
If you can meet this criteria using a tool that appeals to you, like Minecraft or Fortnite, then by all means, because these are the learning outcomes that I have to see at the end. And if they can do that, then, I think you've hit on something important. Some educators also will either create experiences, like, let's say I want to do ancient Egypt. So I create a world in Minecraft or Fortnite, and I have ways, like in Minecraft, in the Education Edition, there are things called NPCs or non-player characters. So I could put them through the world, and as I approach them, they might be the one giving me a tour of ancient Egypt and telling me about each of these pyramids and about the Sphinx and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's not so different in that case. And and then you could take that so far. You could say, as the teacher, hey, this is what I really want to create, and then be a project manager and have the kids create each subsection, and then you've got something for other classes. So I've seen it done. I've seen amazing things done. I've seen educators that use Minecraft to teach about Romeo and Juliet. Both of those tools, like Fortnite and Minecraft, are what they consider sandbox, games or environments. And it just gives you the idea that you can create anything within that environment. And the fact that you can also automate things, again, you as the teacher don't necessarily have to know how to do that, but the kids that are motivated enough will.
They'll end up figuring it out and guiding
totally.
you. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Like, I feel like when I teach game design, what I see as my role is I understand the game design process. I can kind of facilitate that. I know that I want kids to create a design document, before they create their game. I want them to storyboard it out, and then I want them to start developing. I want them to then do some peer testing and get feedback, and then iterating on that process. That's the game design process. That's what I'm ultimately assessing. The tool doesn't necessarily matter to me, which is why I love giving kids choice, because there's so many great tools out there. Like, why should I dictate for every kid what they should use?
So what else is another tool? Like, so you said Minecraft, Fortnite, Creative, what else?
Yeah, so there's something called Twine. So Twine allows you to create, and this is great for language arts and every content area really, but Twine lets you create, like, choose your own, like, sort of text-based adventures. So the kids are writing a ton of story and branching it off based on the choices, and that's where that goes. Game Maker, which is something I used to use, and I still use it a bit, and I love it, but that's a pure game design. That's meant for making games, where some of these others were not meant for that. In my 7th grade, I also give them the option of GameStar Mechanic. So there are a lot of great tools out there. There's something called RPG Maker. So kids that want to make a role-playing game, with like the whole experience and getting experience points and going through a story and fighting dragons and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's all there. So there's a lot of so there's a lot of different tools that the kids can use.
Okay, so I never heard of any of these.
Right.
So you said Twine, Game Maker, RPG Maker, and what was the last one?
What else did I say even? Twine, RPG Maker, Game Maker, Minecraft, Fortnite, Unreal Engine, Unity. These are all different environments. And it depends also. Some of them are more tech. GameStar Mechanic. I don't know.
Oh, GameStar Mechanic. That was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and what's so cool too is like GameStar Mechanic you could use with very young kids. And Minecraft, the thing I just absolutely love about Minecraft is it's so scalable that like the younger kids are doing what's appropriate for them age-wise, but still creating something pretty great. But as the kids get older and develop, more developmentally able to, that's when they start automating things and using a lot of the advanced features and things like that. And some of the younger kids, because they see others doing that and are so motivated to learn it, they do.
They just do it, yeah. So my gaming experience that I've had in education was using Bloxels.
Okay, Bloxels, yeah, definitely.
So we used Bloxels, we used the iPad and the app, and the kids, like, they had to actually reenact when they were doing an ELA class. So they were reenacting immigrants coming to the United States.
Great.
So they made a game using Bloxels. So I
Perfect.
guess I kind of did this already.
Totally, yep.
But I used Bloxels. I had no idea that I never heard of any of these other games, but Bloxels was another option that we
absolutely used. Yeah, Bloxels is great, especially you were probably working with somewhat younger kids, my guess is.
Middle school.
Yeah. Bloxels probably could even be used at a younger age because of the way it's set up. But again, the things kids can do that are in middle school is going to be, take it to another level. Everything you did there could be done with many of these other tools, certainly, Minecraft and stuff. Absolutely. Bloxels is great. I mean, definitely a great opportunity for them, and it's tactile and all that kind of stuff. So there's it's a different kind of environment, but it definitely.
But it's funny because, like, I know, like, in the beginning, the kids they wanted to create their character on the actual board with the blocks. After a while, they didn't even do that. They just did it in the app. Now, younger students, I'm sure they would love that because they're, it's a different different
totally
design.
And that's the thing with the younger kids. I think that's where the seeing it and touching it and making it in the board, even for the character, maybe makes more sense because it's that much more tangible. Where the older kids, you're right, they just say, oh, well, it'll be quicker for me to do it right here in the app.
They just do it right in the app. So all right, so I'm glad that you cleared all that up. You answered my questions.
Good.
The last question is e-games.
Yes. So
e-games, I know, is becoming like in its own.
Totally
Is in, it's coming into its own. So just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll call it the show.
Sure. So esports or competitive gaming is, it's for one as an industry, it's rivaling traditional sports to the point that traditional sports franchises are all getting involved in esports because they see that. To give you just a crazy example, League of Legends, which is one of the big competitive games, the viewership for the finals for League of Legends last year was greater than the viewership for the Super Bowl.
I heard that. Yep.
So, and granted it's a global audience, but then again, hey, if we can bring in a global audience to view our content, I mean, from a production standpoint, and that's just amazing. So that's one thing. It reaches this group of kids that, that have something in common. For one, they enjoy playing games. They're also often, not always, but they're often the kids that are not necessarily going to be the football player or the basketball player. So we're finally creating this place for these kids to shine, and truly shine. And the skill, the level of skill that you'll see in competitive gaming is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I mean, it's not just like, just like anything, you've got your kids who like to play Little League, and then you've got Michael Jordan. You're going to have the same thing in esports, where the level of skill and strategy that some of these kids employ is absolutely amazing.
Well, didn't they just have some type of championship where the kid won? It was like 15 or 16 years old. He won like $3 million.
Yeah, so that was the Fortnite World Cup. So there you go with Fortnite, right? So that was 16-year-old kid won $3 million. What was so interesting is all of the top tier players in that were young. Like, I don't know, there was some large number that were between 14 and 18. So it was like, so here we're seeing these kids at that age have this level of skill that's just incredible. I like to play games. A lot of those games I can't even compete, at all with these kids.
I remember watching an interview with that kid, and he said, "Yeah, I was on the computer playing Fortnite for hours, and my mother used to yell at me all the time to get off." And like, obviously, it paid off, but that's
that right. And he's one in a million, right. So it doesn't, I don't think it gives every kid the right to now go home and say, "Mom, I'm not going to do my homework. I need to practice Fortnite." But for the same kid that would put in that type of dedication and commitment to, let's say, soccer or football, where you have practice for 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, and a match on 1 day a week, it does legitimize that.
Right. That I could say.
Yeah. And also, there's also, what's really neat about esports is they're coming at it from the right angle. Like, anybody who's really involved is talking about the importance of taking breaks, the importance of mindfulness, the importance of stretching and being of good, mind and body, nutrition even. So it's not like where we think of the kid in the basement playing games, eating pizza and drinking soda all day. There's much more, there's a lot to
I'm glad
good.
that you brought that up, because that's a concern. But I know some people or some schools, they have this as a club,
after
school club. Like you said, like the attendance counts. And
right. Yep.
They have to keep their grades up, and no different than a sport. Like, that's
correct. And we have it at both the middle school that I'm at and the high school where I am. We have in my middle school for years, we've had a gaming club that's kind of casual, that creates this great space for kids that just want to be together playing games. And we have an esports club that's competitive. And then at the high school, our focus is more on the competitive. But yeah, the interesting thing too is I think we have a really interesting opportunity here, because there are some negative, aspects of the gaming industry and such. And, kids generally, if they're playing at home, they're sort of subject to, the real world and how people behave. When we bring this into school and we start having it be, sort of moderated and have definite, sort of guidelines and expectations for things like digital citizenship and sportsmanship, where my hope is that we are going to change the landscape of the greater gaming community, because the kids that we can model for and work with are going back home, hopefully understanding the importance of these values, rather than them always just going home and playing in an unsupervised environment. Like, I'd rather have them with us at school and talk about positive, behavior, talk about toxicity, which is a thing in the gaming community, and talk about how we can, be our best selves and stuff. So, I think there's so much great potential, and there's so many areas outside of just the player that are coming to the table. Like our club at the high school, one of the students the other day, pulled kids aside and said, "Hey, let's create a creative, group within this group that's going to be the ones to do branding and work on a logo and maybe design the jersey and things. So this is a group of kids that want to be part of it, but might not be the ones that necessarily play competitively. Then you have what they call shoutcasters, which are the people that announce the matches, and that's a skill unto itself too. So there's so much great stuff, and I just think you had said before something about how I had started a lot of this a long time ago. It is so exciting to see it all coming to be more mainstream, and to see other educators buying in, and administrators buying in, and people seeing the value. And this is what I've been hoping for forever. So it's really exciting to see where we've come and where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you brought up that the point about being monitored, and then you have lessons that you can teach your kids, teachable moments.
Yep.
And rather than being unsupervised at home, like I think that's important to state as well, because you are in a controlled environment when you're in school,
right?
And then, like you said, you're targeting a different audience that's not necessarily the star athlete, and then you're targeting other students who can be like the broadcasters or the logo makers or things like that. So there's it opens up a whole area where students can go in and explore, and that area is kind of new territory for educators as well. So, but it's definitely justifiable. I mean, that part you can definitely justify. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I know you touched a little bit on it, but at least you gave me some insight, and some the viewers a little bit more insight as well, because it is such an upcoming thing now. Like, it's just all over the place, and it's crazy, but this is what is in demand, I guess.
Right.
And what's trending. So
it's what's important to the kids.
Yeah, and that's how they're, and basically that's what it is. If you can get your administration on board with it and support you, then you really can give the kids a great, learning experience, either, like you said, digital citizenship and game design and everything, marketing and branding. Like, it just doesn't stop,
Right.
And these skills are skills that these kids need after they graduate high school, because when they get to the working world, there's a big gap between whatever, if it's high school and the working world, or college and the working world, there's a big gap in skills that they're not getting, the computing skills or the life skills that they need. So this kind of covers it all, but yeah, no, I'm so glad that you actually came on and you talked about it, and you gave so much great information. I know I learned a lot, because I am definitely not a gamer.
Right.
So,
and the goal is
that I do is totally not any of this stuff.
Yeah, but the goal is to let people like know that it is possible, and that you don't have to be the expert, and that the value of games is great enough that it's worth bringing in. Yeah.
I mean, I use CoSpaces.
Oh, cool.
Cube and Bloxels and different environments like that, or different applications in that way, but never like the Minecraft. Like, I've never administered a Minecraft class or any of that stuff. So, like, for me, that would be a big learning curve. But it's definitely definitely valued. It's definitely doable. It's just that you have to get a buy-in for it.
Yeah, one of the neat things, and I invite you, is that I have been live streaming from a lot of my classes on Twitch, and like the last few days with my 7th graders, we've been doing Minecraft, and we've been doing command blocks and coding with Make Code and Code Builder. So there are a lot of neat, jump into my stream just to watch when you have a chance, and see it in action. I mean, I think that would.
All right. Yeah. Put the stream in the show notes, so that
I think it actually is.
Yeah. So we can find it.
Sure.
But thanks for coming on, Steve. I really appreciate it. It was very helpful, very, very informative. And I know, like, I'm gonna tinkle in with some of these. I want to see what they are. And just become a little bit more familiar with it, so that when I hear what these names are, I know what they are. But it's all good. That's why that's why I like to do the show, to help pay it forward. I call it pay it forward because, you know, we're all learning together. So,
Definitely.
but thanks for coming on. And what I'm going
My
to do
pleasure.
really quick is I'm going to share my screen. So let me know if you can see my screen because we have a funky setup. Do you see it?
There you go. Yes, I do.
All right. So in order for you to be on my show, you have to visit my website. So you can go to the suitetalk.com and you can actually, when it loads, you can actually subscribe to my YouTube channel, join my Facebook group, subscribe to my newsletter, subscribe on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and Google Podcasts. If you would like to be a guest on my show, simply fill out the guest form on the homepage and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And tonight's episode will be on the episode and podcast list page where you can see the show notes in here, which are Wakelet collections. You can watch the YouTube video in here as well when I get it uploaded. But there's all past episodes in here that you can refer to. And that's about it.
Cool.
I'm
Awesome.
back. All right. Well, thanks, Steve, for being on, and I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.